Welcome to another episode of the Unprofessional Parenting Podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Lainey.
And we're back, baby. After 2 weeks off, we are back with another episode to give the people what they want.
Yeah.
And hopefully you didn't miss us too much. I know 2 weeks ago, I was doing an event for our church.
Yep.
And so that just so happened to take place on the day that we typically shoot these.
Mm-hmm.
And I know last week you were out of town. Where were you?
Yeah. I went to the Big Apple.
The big apple. NYC, baby. The Big Apple. Why do they call it that? Do you know?
I don't know.
There's got to be some lore to it that we don't know.
I don't know.
Not privy to that information.
I don't know, but that's where I was.
So you were gallivanting in New York City with some friends.
Girls trip.
Yeah. Tell me about how that was. Was it fun?
It was so cold.
Yeah?
It was so cold
Yeah, I bet
in New York City. And I saw people there in shorts.
Insane.
And I was in...
That's how you know they're not Floridians.
Oh, for sure. I looked at them and I was like, well, I know where you're not from. And
Precisely.
It's not from the same place I'm from. And it was so cold. I mean, it was so cool. I saw it snow.
That's awesome.
Which was really fun.
When was the last time you saw snow before that? Like actual snowfall.
Snow falling from the sky.
From the sky, yeah.
I was a kid. Like on a ski trip.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's been a while then.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Oh, it was so fun.
Yeah. You came home a little sick?
Listen, I don't know what is in New York City, but there was something nasty there, and I came back. I haven't been
out cold. So let me tell you about my life for the past 2 weeks, okay?
Yeah, tell us about your life, Matt.
So while you were just having the time of your life, going to Broadway shows, eating real good, hanging out in New York City.
We need to talk about bagels at some point as well.
That's a different episode.
We're doing a whole episode on New York City bagels.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know enough about New York City bagels to host an entire episode on that, but we'll make it work somehow.
Oh.
Anyway, while you're over there doing your thing, I'm staying here with our 3 kids.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to let everybody know that I got everybody in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. Balancing 4 different schedules, being the executive functioning for the house is exhausting.
Yeah.
And then there's the extra stuff that the kids want to do. Like, hey, can I go out and hang out with so-and-so? And I'm like, no, you can just go to school and you can just come home, right?
Yeah.
So bottom line, please don't leave me ever again.
Also, shout out to single parents.
Yeah, unbelievable. I don't know how you do
Dang.
it. It's very impressive, and I don't know how you do it, but I envy you.
They're just perpetually tired all the time.
It's impressive. So yeah, don't ever leave again. Or if you leave, please just take me and we'll leave our kids somewhere else, with somebody else.
That's the real vacation.
Yeah. All right. Well, today's podcast, I wanted to talk about attachment and bonding. You know, it's something that we still work on in our home, but I think that the attachment and bonding between a parent and a child is so key to growing up, basically, and building healthy relationships, right?
That is the key.
Yeah, it's all about that.
Yes,
right?
that's quite literally like right that is your attachment with your caregiver in early childhood is going to set the trajectory of relationships for the rest of your life.
Right. So I did read somewhere that over 30% of Americans have attachment issues or struggle with strong, healthy attachment. And as a student pastor, I do see that in the lives of our students now, of just struggling interpersonally, having issues with, does so-and-so like me? We experience that even with our kids, right? But in the foster care world, that number is exponentially blown up. Over 80% of kids in foster care struggle with healthy attachment and bonding. And there's a number of reasons for that, biological family and trauma and things that they've experienced in the past, or just moving from house to house in foster care can be a contributing factor to that. So what exactly is attachment and what exactly is bonding? Could you kind of define that for us?
Yeah. So there's four main styles of attachment when you're thinking about relationships, and these all are developed as soon as a child is born. Actually, there are studies that show that this is beginning to form like in utero.
Wow.
So children are learning.
That's God.
Like children are learning attachment with their mother, like in utero.
That's so
It's
crazy.
yeah.
It's so crazy to think about.
It's phenomenal. But it's a really sensitive time. Like it's a sensitive time for attachment and for children before they're born, as soon as they're born. The ages of like 0 to 5 are your real big
milestone.
Yeah, that's like your real big years of developing your attachment style, which it's cool to think about. But then when you think about children that come from homes with trauma and attachment issues to begin with, then it's kind of like, oh, wait, that's kind of scary that that's such a big piece of their life is developed so soon and so quickly. But yeah, so your relationship with your caregivers, your first caregivers in life, are going to set the foundations of how you relate to every other person in your life.
Yeah, it's like a trickle-down effect.
It is, yeah. Now, the cool thing is that God created us with this thing called neuroplasticity. So that is our brain's ability to change and adapt and learn throughout our entire life. So our brain literally never stops learning and changing, or having the capacity to do so.
It's wild.
For our entire lives. Yeah. So it's not like if you're like cursed at the beginning of your childhood, then like you
miss the window, you're done. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Now it's significantly more challenging. If you miss that window of healthy learning of attachment, it is really challenging to like relearn something else in the future, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
So
there's always hope for that.
Yeah. Oh, there is.
Rewiring the brain, basically.
Yeah. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why foster and adoptive parents do what they do, because we believe, and especially with the hope of the gospel, we believe that lives can change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we believe that you can be given a new life and relearn a new way of living and attaching. So back to what I was saying, there's 4 main attachment styles, and I had to write them down because I won't memorize them for sure.
Yeah.
The first being a secure, healthy attachment.
Right.
When you think about that person, you think about a person that's confident. You think about a person that knows that they are safe. They're in a relationship that is safe. They understand and have appropriate boundaries. They are responsive to the person that they're attached to. They can be easily comforted by the person that they're attached to. Like that is a secure, healthy attachment. And then you have 3 attachment styles that are considered unhealthy attachment styles. The first being an anxious attachment. So this child is, they often feel anxious. They might feel overly clingy or kind of like obsessive with their caregiver.
Right.
They constantly seek reassurance from other people. One of their greatest fears is rejection.
Yeah.
Like rejection in relationships. So they are constantly working and striving to make sure that their person does not reject them.
Right. And so just to stop you there, as you're in the anxious style, I do think that even some of these bonding and attachment things that you see within your kids that look healthy could be unhealthy disguised as healthy. You're talking about like the wanting to be attached and the over, like the always constantly checking in and making sure things are okay. To some people that sounds like, wow, they really care about what I think and like, and where I'm at in this relationship. But that could be an unhealthy thing as well.
It can. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we can really get into like the black and white of like, well, how do I know if my child is healthy versus unhealthy?
Right.
Like, I don't know if we can really get into that, but there is a definite difference between a child who checks in with their caregiver because that is like a healthy way of responding to your caregiver and being in a relationship and checking in with a person.
Right.
And then a child who is like, cannot live life and is totally dependent on the reassurance of their caregiver.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
A really healthy child is like they have their zone of security with their parent and they feel safe to travel outside that zone, to test new things, to take risks, and then they'll do a check-in.
Yeah.
and the parent says, "You're doing good. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're safe. I'm still here."
Right.
And then they feel okay to wander back out again.
Right.
But a child with an anxious attachment never feels safe to wander out of that circle.
Man. Yeah. Okay. Keep going with
moving
this.
on. So then we've got you have a dismissive style of attachment. So that child or adult really struggles with closeness. They cannot. They are scared of being close to people. They often withdraw in social situations. They are overly independent, which I find really interesting. So like they don't rely on relationship and attachment. They are forging their own path in the world, and they are doing everything on their own. They're really emotionally distant from their caregiver, and just generally unresponsive in a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, as you're saying these things, I'm kind of going through my kids and like, which ones are which, right? And just prescribing them.
Right. But back to what you were saying is like things can maybe look healthy.
Right.
But if the pendulum swings too far, it's not healthy.
Right. So there's a fine line there. You have to balance that.
There is. And we have to be careful as parents. I think our society really values independence and strong and you know, all those things, which my family values a lot as well. Like I consider that some of my greatest attributes is being independent and strong-willed and all those things. But to an extreme, if you're expecting your young child to go do these things and be independent without you there as a scaffold, like that can also create...
It's unhealthy.
Yeah, that can also create a distance in your attachment.
Right.
Yeah, and so the last style is a fearful attachment. So this child fears connection. They often have like extreme emotional responses to things.
Yeah.
They have poor boundaries in their relationships. And this is the child that you see as being emotionally hot or cold. They kind of bounce back and forth.
It's like a roller coaster.
It is. Like they bounce back and forth between like being really intimate in a relationship, or it might appear that they're really intimate in a relationship, and then suddenly they are completely distant in the relationship.
Right.
And that is your fearful attachment.
Wow. Well, thank you for defining those for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, as we find out, you know, and we see more about what attachment is, what's unhealthy, what is healthy, what is disguised as healthy, but what is actually unhealthy. It brings me back to a point where, in our unique story with our kids, you're talking about the developmental stages. You know, back to our story, we missed a lot of those developmental years.
Oh, and all of them.
Yeah, pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
With our foster care journey and adoption journey, and so you're trying to play catch up, right? And even with foster care, they teach you in your trainings, in your classes, that there's a finite amount of time that you have in foster care, because the goal of foster care is not ultimately to adopt, it's to reunify kids with their biological families and parents or a caregiver biologically, right?
Right.
And so you step into the foster care world knowing that, and so for us, and I know for me specifically, I am very big and very careful with relationship, and I want things to be right all the time. I want bonding and attachment to happen instantaneously. I feel like there was a pressure when our girls came into our home of like, I got to get this right. I got to get this right quick, and they got to love me, and they got to trust me, and we got to go 0 to 60 immediately. But we know that's not the case.
No.
Here we are years later, and we've realized that is not how bonding and attachment works. Even like you said, even if you miss the windows of that growing up, of that growth, and those windows of opportunity, bonding and attachment takes time.
Oh yeah,
it takes time. And again, just for our unique story, I remember when the girls first moved into our home, we finished our licensing classes, and we officially got our professional parents certificate, and all things were good to go. And so we were tracking to become foster parents. And I remember very quickly after we finished those classes and that training that we got a call about our girls. And they said, we have 2 girls who are in a foster home right now, and they're looking for a new placement over in the Pinellas County area. And we had a little bit of a runway there. We actually got to FaceTime the girls because this was during COVID, and whole bunch of other things were happening, and so everything took a long time to get going and stuff. And so we finally got to the point where the girls were coming to our house, right?
Yeah.
And this night was something that I had planned in my mind to be one of the most glorious, emotional, impactful, great nights of my entire life, your entire life, the girls' entire life. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted them to feel like princesses. I wanted them to just jump into the gigantic trust pool that we have in our home, right? And I remember even the night before, you and I are sitting up and talking in bed about what's about to happen, and we have way different emotions.
Oh, yeah.
You were sitting there like, this is our last night as a single couple.
I was like, this is the end of our lives, Matt.
Of a married couple with no kids. Things are going to forever change, weeping, crying about that. And I'm just like, I can't wait for these girls to get into my house. So they came the next day, and they dropped off, all their things. And it's such a strange process. It's such a strange thing and feeling also. I can't imagine what they were walking through.
Yeah.
But, you're dropped off at a home of somebody you don't know, and you're walking in with what little stuff you have to now start a season of life with somebody.
Yeah.
I would be terrified.
Like a total stranger. You now have to bond to a total stranger.
Right. And so, me just being the emotional blob I am, wanted that night to be perfect. So what did we do? We went out and we got build your own pizza supplies with the dough, the cheese sauce, pepperonis, all the toppings. And we were going to have a family bonding moment. And this was going to be a beautiful, just sweet moment for us as we build pizzas. We laugh, we cry, we hang out, we eat, and then they go to bed knowing...
You're like directing a movie.
I know, right? I know. No, well, this is what was playing out in my mind. Knowing that, like, they're going to go to bed and they're going to think of me as the world's greatest dad and you as the world's greatest mom. But what actually happened was we made the pizzas. I had a ton of fun doing it, but it was awkward. It was so weird. And the girls went to bed, and I know for a fact that they were in the exact same place as they were emotionally when they walked into our home for the first time.
Yeah, and they've woken up every day since.
Every single
still
day
thinking
since.
that we're absolute losers.
No, but every day since, still wondering emotionally, like, is this real?
Yep.
Can this happen?
Yep.
Like, is this a real life that I'm living?
Yeah, we're what, 5 years into this?
Yeah, 5 years into this, and we are still trying to lay down the foundations of what it means to, like, have an emotional attachment and bond.
Yeah. I mean, we still have conversations. I think they pick it up differently. I mean, they're both very different.
Yeah.
So they both attach to us.
Their attachment styles are different.
Their attachment styles are totally different. Which is that plays into another truth about trauma, is that you can experience some of the exact same things in life and they affect you completely differently than somebody else.
Yeah. So your story.
Yeah. So they have completely different attachment styles. But we're still having conversations with both of them, just like reminding them, like, hey, I love you, right?
Yeah.
Like
core conversations.
Wait, you do remember that I love you. And it was not long ago that one of them opened up to us and just said, I'm terrified you're going to leave me.
Yep.
And
heartbreaking.
We look at her like,
how could you
what
think
the
that?
heck? We've been telling you for the past 5 years.
Yeah, how could you think that?
Yeah, like
we've been showing you, we've been doing it, we've been saying all the right stuff.
I'm invested.
But that thought in her mind was still there.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking to hear, honestly.
Yeah. And that is the struggle of attachment. That is the struggle of an unhealthy attachment style and trying to learn and develop a secure attachment, is that it just takes so long, and it just takes constant reinforcement of the truth.
Right. And so, and here's the thing that we've even experienced also is the negative moments impacting the positive moments as well. Right.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
The deposits that we keep making every single day of the truth about what their life looks like.
Yeah.
It almost feels like steps are taken back when a negative moment happens as well.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's part of it. But like even when our daughter came out and said that to us recently, I was just in a place where I'm like, I can't, Like it's a glimpse into the mind of the way that she operates and thinks about everything in her life.
Right.
It's not just about us and this family. It's
Right.
about every relationship she has in her life. And it gives us a glimpse of like, this girl is walking through it every single day.
And she's not unique.
No,
and I
no.
don't say that in like a diss, like, wow, what a bland human she is. But like, her struggle is the struggle of so many children and adults who have experienced an unhealthy attachment or disruption or trauma in their early childhood.
Yeah.
Like, her story is so many people's story. And that's what we keep praying for her and all of our children, is like, man, your story, it could be so powerful one day.
Change lives.
Like, you can change people's lives so much. We just gotta get it right now.
Right.
But yeah, her story and her feeling and that mindset of constantly questioning relationships, like, are you gonna be here tomorrow?
Yeah.
Am I gonna do something so wrong that you leave me? Am I gonna mess this up somehow? Like, just that constant monologue in her mind of questioning, am I actually truly loved? Like, is this person, like, are these people who say that they are my parents truly committed to me?
Yeah. Or is this just lip service?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so we continue to pray for just even that mindset, like that she would understand the truth about our intentions here, right? It's not just, to look good on paper or to get pats on the back for doing things. We genuinely care about you.
Right.
Like, we love you and we care about your future and your life and your relationships. And so this is why we are stepping in the way we are.
Right.
And so that's our biggest prayer for her.
Yeah. Well, so knowing that secure attachment is possible, like, that's what we're working towards.
Yeah.
It's what so many foster and adoptive families continually work towards and strive towards.
Yeah.
Like, what is a very practical way that you strive or like help develop secure attachment in our kids?
Yeah. The best thing I love to tell my kids is, and I will tell them this straight up. I will ask them, when was the last time that you didn't have either Lainey or I pick you up from school? When was the last time that you went on to a place or to a friend's house where we didn't have communication and contact with you? And we missed you. Like, we forgot about you. We weren't there for you. Something as easy as, and I hate this place more than anything on earth. We talked about it before, but car line picking up my kids, it's like a wasted hour and a half of my life. But
can we get a resounding amen from moms and dads who sit in car lines?
You got to redeem the time somehow. But I also remind myself in those moments, I think about myself, like, I'm about to pull up in a line and my kids are expecting me to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show up and I'm going to be there and I'm going to complete in their mind that process. And every time I can do that, I make a deposit in the trust bank that, like, they are there for me regardless. Regardless. Like, there's times where I've had to leave meetings early. There's times where I've had to, skip out on stuff because I need to be there for my children to pick them up from school. Something as easy as that, I think, just reinforces the narrative that I keep trying to teach my kids through my actions and my words, that I love you and that you can trust me and that I'm going to be there for you. So something as simple as that. What about you?
Yeah. So, just consistently, like, being consistent and showing up.
Yeah.
Showing up for your kids.
Right.
Yeah. For me, I think another important piece of developing secure attachment is setting boundaries and following through with what you say you're going to do.
Ooh, be of your word.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is to the positive and to the negative. Like, we're really big in this house on not threatening consequences that we will not follow through with.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if I say I'm going to do something or you're going to get a consequence for something, we got to follow through with it.
Right. Yep.
We got to follow through with it. And the same goes for the positive. If you say you're going to do something or get something or go somewhere, you got to follow through with it.
Yeah.
So boundaries and follow through are so important to developing secure attachment.
Yeah.
Because kids need to know what to expect. Kids thrive in predictability. Kids thrive in structure and boundaries. And it's so sad to me. I feel like our generation maybe I didn't do like a study on this, so don't quote me, but I feel like millennials really started this crap parenting of just like letting your kids do whatever they want to do and like whatever they feel like and whatever makes them happy and like
forge your own path.
Yeah, like whatever your own truth is, because we come from generations of being like very strict, I guess, and our generation didn't like that. So we wanted to rebel on it, and it's producing kids that have insecure attachments.
Right.
It's producing kids that don't know what to expect from the world.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to expect, so they don't know how to act, they don't know how to regulate their emotions, they don't know like what to expect from relationships and from caregivers. And so it's creating these insecure attachment styles in kids, and it just makes me so sad.
Yeah.
Because kids thrive in predictability. So if you can set boundaries, they're not going to love it. Like I can't recall the last time that I like gave our kids a bedtime and enforced it, and they looked at me and were like, "Thank you so much for making me go to bed right now."
No, it's like, the exact opposite.
It's the exact opposite.
It's like slow cutting them.
It is, right? But in their minds, it is building resilience, and it's building predictability,
expectation,
and it's yes, and it is developing within them the ability to respond to expectations.
Yeah.
And it is showing them like, hey, I love you enough to set these boundaries.
Yeah.
And I love you enough and care about you enough to have these expectations and to follow through with it and reinforce it. We tell our kids all the time when we're providing some type of disciplinary measure or getting onto them for their grades or correcting their behavior in some way, like, I would not be doing this if I did not care.
Right.
A parent that doesn't care doesn't care. Like, they let you do whatever you want to do.
Right.
A parent that cares steps in and sets boundaries and follows through.
Yeah.
So that is a huge thing for me in building secure attachment, along with what you're doing. Like, obviously, with all the things, that is one component.
Right. Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot. We're just giving very easy, practical examples. Keeping promises, following through with your word, showing up for your kids. Yep. Those are the things that you can do. Being
emotionally vulnerable. I think that's another thing. Like, especially if you have a child that struggles with emotional connection and like they're the child that is emotionally distant, like showing emotional vulnerability in your relationship helps build that secure attachment, helps create a space, and it's a safe space. It sends a message to these kids' minds that this is a space where emotions are okay. And this is a space where I can feel these things and work these things out, and we can talk about more difficult subjects. Apologies are huge. Like, or
just not even just apologies, asking for forgiveness, understanding broken relationship, and teaching them through that.
And I mean from us as adults.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't mean like forcing it on the kids. Yeah. I mean like not telling kids, you better apologize if you did something. No, I mean like, hey, I just really messed this up.
You love apologizing, don't you? It's your favorite thing.
I'm so good at apologizing. No, it's actually something I'm really terrible at. But that's where sanctification comes in.
Yeah, praise the Lord.
The Lord just knows what we need when he makes us parents.
Absolutely.
But, all those things. There's so many things that can help build secure attachment, but it's like little by little at a time.
Yep. And if you're listening to this, just know bonding and attachment is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Oh.
It definitely takes time. And again, we haven't figured it out all on our own. These are just the things that we've seen working and the things that we've enjoyed doing over the past 5 years that we've been parents with our kids.
Another unique thing that I want to point out about bonding and attachment when it comes to foster children specifically, I was recalling the first couple years of all of our kids in our home. So the first couple years of all three of our children being in our home, it was the mindset of they are going home.
Right.
Like, they are going back to their parents or back to their biological family in some way. So I remember consciously telling myself on a regular basis, these are not my kids. These are not my kids. Because I think...
Well, at the same time, though, treating them as your kids.
Right?
Yep.
It's the weirdest, it is just the most confusing emotional state that you can live in.
Yeah.
But we do it for them. But I just remember thinking a lot of times foster parents can get a bad rap for like claiming, like stealing these children and trying to like make them their own child when they're not their own child yet. Like they have another mom or dad, like they're working towards reunifying with that family. So I was like, I never want to get caught in the position of looking like a foster parent that's trying to take another parent's child. So I was consciously telling myself, like, these are not my kids. These are not my kids. And then like overnight, a court looks at us and says,
yeah, by the way, these kids might be your kids forever. So it's
like a decision is made. It's literally like in an instant, you go to a court hearing and a judge says, we are no longer working towards reunification. We are working towards adoption.
Right.
And it's like, boom, the whole, like your whole mind shift changes.
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember in those moments, suddenly your heart has to go from these are not my kids to, okay, well, these are my kids.
Right.
And it's just, you work for so many years in one direction.
Yeah.
And then to switch into another direction as an adult was so hard.
Right.
It still is.
Well,
like,
I think it makes you do inventory personally. And I think this is important. Something that we've been teaching or saying in all the episodes is like, you got to be emotionally ready for this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is an absolute roller coaster, not just dealing with the attachment and emotions of kids that are, have gone through trauma and everything like that, walking into your home, but you're also yourself on an emotional roller coaster as well of like, when is the last day that I'm going to have these kids in my home?
Right.
Like what are the things that I want them to feel and know and truth that I want them to cling to while they're here before they step out of this house?
Because I think that there's been moments where we have prepared, like had conversations and prepared each of our children for leaving our home.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I want you to know before you leave.
Yeah.
Here's how.
Not explicitly said in a conversation, but like, I mean, maybe.
Like, do you know my cell phone number in case you need me in the future? Like,
right.
Those are the types of conversations we've had with them.
Yeah.
And then you just switch to like, well, actually, you're not leaving.
Yeah.
You know, now you're ours. And for us as adults, that's so hard for us to work through. You know, it takes conscious effort for us to process this and work towards like, okay, now we have to build attachment in this way, and we have to start seeing these kids as like our very own kids, truly like on a deep like bonding level.
Yeah.
But then I think these poor kids, like how
they're walking through it, man.
It's hard for us as adults to do this. I can only imagine these kids and the whiplash that they feel of like, you might be going home to mom. Remember, we're working towards going home to mom. And then like one day you just tell them, actually, you're not going back home to mom anymore. Like, that's devastating. Like that is devastating. Yeah. And then we expect them to just like rebound and then be like, okay, well, life
is good. Let's go back to the way things were, right?
Well, I guess you're my new mom and dad now. Like that just doesn't happen. That's not how it works.
Yeah, it's tough. And that's part of the journey. That's part of the process. And that's something you understand going in and you have to be okay with, and you have to understand. And this is why, I think that our spiritual lives and our reliance in the Lord has been such a key thing in factor in why we've been able to do this journey together, is that God is in control, and we believe that regardless of if a child stays in our home or goes back to another parent or bio family or anything like that. It's that trust factor that, we're going to be faithful with the time that God has given them in his home. And we are going to do our absolute best to let them know that Jesus loves them, to let them know that there's a bigger purpose of their life than just living in the moment and the circumstances that are surrounding them. And that we love them, and this is a place that they can find trust. But again, that is an absolute journey, and we're still walking through that, even with a confirmation from a court that our foster kids are now our adoptive kids, and all of that goes with it. It doesn't matter the amount of assurance that they have. It doesn't matter the amount of times that we tell them. It is the long journey process of us just reminding them every single day, this is who you are, this is what God says about you, and this is who you are to us, right? And so I think for all of our listeners out there, we just need to keep encouraging you. If you're a parent, if you're a foster parent or adoptive parent, it is a journey of attachment and bonding that is necessary for your kids and for you, but is such a beautiful thing in the end, right?
Yep.
This has been a good conversation.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You did good.
Thanks. I'm going to need to go back and just like re-listen to this myself and just like keep preaching to myself.
100%.
You know?
Yeah, it's one of those things.
Because there's just days where we aren't there either.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening. This has been Matt
and Lainey
with the Unprofessional Parenting Podcast, and we will see you guys next time.